Hi, everybody. Lee here. Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. I'm super excited that you have chosen today to come and talk and listen concerning life and leadership. Today, if you have not done it yet, go and subscribe to Leading with Lee on YouTube and other podcasting platforms. And I would greatly appreciate to see your likes, comments, and for you to share it and tell people about what's happening here on Leading with Lee. So today, I have a very, very, very special guest. She is a wonderful woman. I've met her through a mutual friend of mine. She has been really pushing and talking to people about relationships. And so we're going to talk about a very interesting subject today. So please welcome to Leading Miss Andrea Rolle. How are you doing, Miss Andrea?
Hi, Lee. How are you? Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you offering this opportunity.
Sure. So thank you for coming on. One thing I do want to ask you about as we jump right in is how are you doing? I know it's a lot been going on in our culture and our society. When this episode comes out, we'll be a few weeks away out from having a snowstorm here in the
Yeah.
Tulsa metro area. So how are you and your family doing at this current moment?
So we're fine. I mean, last week was kind of a bit of a pill. I mean, we were out in it. Right now, we're in the process of getting a second car. But for now, I'm driving my husband back and forth to work. So when it was -9, turning into -11, 15, I was out in it. So I survived all my limbs, fingers and toes, all that. So we're good.
Okay. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So, one thing I wanted to talk to you specifically about, you are a career woman. You've been very successful in your own career. From my understanding, I mean, we had a conversation. You have an MBA. You know,
Mhm.
you're out here with the bosses. You took business statistics. No, not whatever, not me. So, how has your background and where you come from and who you are, how's it shaped you in your career, and how has it shaped you as a woman?
So, I don't really share this story, Lee, because I'm a person that I strive. No matter what the circumstances, I strive. So I came from very, very humble beginnings. Grew up in the on the west side of Louisville, which is not necessarily Louisville, Kentucky. That is, which is not necessarily the most affluent area. It's actually the ghetto. Some parts of it are the ghetto, and I grew up in the heart of that. But growing up, I realized that that was not where I wanted to live. Not because there was anything bad about it, but I didn't want to be limited to that area.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, oh, I'm sorry. Were you about to say something
I
else?
thought you were going to say something. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, you can keep going. No, you have the floor. I'm sorry.
Okay. You looked like you were going to say something. I was like, okay, you going to ask me a question? Okay,
No.
my apologies. Okay. So I didn't want to be limited to that area. And I was telling my son the other day, since I was 5 years old, wanted to always be an attorney. Okay. And that was
Ooh.
my goal. When I went to school, that was my end game. From the time I went to elementary school, all the way up through high school, all the way up through college, I was going to be an attorney. And I took my eyes off the prize for just a little bit. And I ended up getting married.
So we're blaming marriage.
Yeah, I got married, had a family, and I was like, I've done the mom thing. Like, not that I've quit the mom thing, but I've done the mom thing. I've invested myself in my children. My children are old enough for me to go back to school. So at 30 something years old, I just to go back and get my MBA. It was the toughest time of my life, but I'm telling you, I am so grateful that I did that because it afforded me the confidence and the ability to stand up, speak, make decisions, and know that I could sit in the room, being an African American woman, I could sit in the room and ask questions and be effective just like any of my counterparts. So just very grateful for the opportunity. I spent years in the HR field, had a consulting firm for a while. It had to close down because of COVID. But right now, I'm a professor at Oklahoma Wesleyan University, reading strategic compensation. It's been amazing, and I plan on picking up that goal and going back to get my law degree.
I listen. I think that that's amazing. I think that that's amazing because that would encourage people to realize that it doesn't matter when you get something done. It matters that you get it done, right?
Yes,
And
that's
so
right.
I'm super excited for being able to call you when I get in legal trouble. So kind of staying in that vein, you were talking about being a mom, being an entrepreneur. I think you are a relationship energizer. I think that you are someone who is definitely a thought leader when it comes to these issues. How have you balanced that in life? Because obviously this episode is coming out during Women's History Month, and women have been the backbone of our culture. And so, how have you seen that all of those experiences? How has that given you perspective and how you affect the world?
So one thing that my husband and I love the dynamic that we have. No relationship is the same. Okay, and my husband and I, we do not conform to the normal gender roles in marriage. So for a long time, to help my husband out, I was the number one breadwinner. I did what I needed to do. I had a degree. I did, I went to work every day, made the money. He was able to go to ministry school, things of that nature. When it was my turn, he did the same thing. He's been in my corner. He's been fighting for me. And when I made the announcement or the decision to go to law school, he was like, I'm 100% behind you. I can help you. I want you to do whatever is in your heart to do. So I've been blessed with an understanding husband and one that wants to see me thrive and move forward.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. We need that in the culture at this particular moment. And so, how have you translated that into um, going forward? Like I said, there is Women's History Month. You are an extremely accomplished woman. How who are some of the women that inspire you and cause you to be like, yeah, I can pursue this? Like, who are some of those women?
When on January 20th, 2021, I saw Kamala Harris take the oath
Oh yeah,
for Vice President of the United States, there was something in me that leapt for joy. Now, despite the politics, I mean, I don't really care what your politics are. I saw a woman that looked just like me that
wow,
went all the way to the top.
wow,
And I looked at my husband, I was like, I think I've made the right decision to pursue this goal.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, definitely feel that way. She has inspired me. Michelle Obama, inspiration. Angela Davis was my inspiration for a long time.
oh yeah,
Claire Huxtable was
right,
my
right,
inspiration for a long time. So, really seeing women, I don't think that I'm a respecter of persons as far as that's concerned. There's not just one woman, it's being able to see women in leadership, looking at them, and especially people that look like me, to be able to see them in a position and say, yes, it is possible. Yes, I can do it. Yes.
yeah, yeah. I think you bring up a powerful point. Um, our accomplishments are not isolated, right? What we do in the world is in the world is not isolated, and when we understand that if we bring ourselves to every moment, the impact of it is so much more greater than we could actually understand in the present moment, right?
Mhm.
So you see these women who have accomplished a lot in their lives and have been standard bearers for you. But I want to ask you, who do you want to inspire? Because whether you realize, Miss Andrea, you are someone who has been very accomplished in so many different facets. Like who do you want to inspire?
So I want to inspire women. I want to inspire women that have been in relationships with men that have held them back. I want to inspire women that are just like me, that let go of their goals for a relationship and are
Yeah.
ready to come back and go at it full force. I want to inspire young men to treat young ladies appropriate. I've got three boys. So when they look at me and they're like, that guy
Yes.
is sexist, he should let you
Yes.
sit at the table. I feel like I've done my job. They know that women can do whatever they want to do. And I want to inspire men as well to get rid of the chauvinistic thinking and to move forward and allow women to sit in the room because we have ideas, we have perspective, and we can lead just as much as you can.
Woo, I'm gonna try to hold myself. I agree with everything you just said. Oh my gosh, yes. I like that's so encouraging, and you kind of tapped into something that I didn't think I was going to go into, but I want to talk to you about that. What have some what have some of your experience been with being an accomplished woman and being in rooms where either they're not acknowledging the quality or the power you bring to those conversations, or you're just being just flat out ignored or undermined. How did you navigate that?
Okay, so I'm very very direct, but at the same time I try to get to know the individual and speak to that individual with care, true concern, and then I just keep asking. I don't stop asking. So, for example, I work for a CEO. Was right next to him, helped him with company decisions, things of that nature, hiring, firing, organizational aspects of the company. I wanted to hire a certain quality of people, and he wasn't for it. And I wanted to let go of a certain quality of people, and he wasn't having it. He had this strange attachment to these individuals, and they were not healthy for the organization. So some things transpired while he was out of town, and he came back and he said, Andrea, what do I need to do? And I said, well, do you want me to tell you what you want to hear, or do you want me to tell you what you really need to do? And it's up to you. And he said, well, tell me what I need to do. So you need to let these people go, and then you need to hire new people, and then you need to make these changes. So I've been patient over time. I'll say that. And I'm a praying woman. So I'm patient, I pray, and I'm persistent.
Yeah, all of that's good. You know, as you were talking, I thought about the necessity of uh, diversity in the business culture. A friend of mine, I was interviewing um, previous episodes of Leading, and he said something that I thought was so critical. He said that um, it's good to have. He said it's very important that not only we have diversity, but we should have diversity of thought and diversity of color in the business space, because that actually makes the culture be strengthened and empowered and cause people to actually understand different perspectives. Sometimes we can have everybody that looks like us, but we may all have groupthink going on
Mm-hmm.
and not being creative and unique in some ways that could actually help the company or organization move forward. And
Yes.
I think you're getting at something that's so critical. So as we kind of stay in that same vein, how do you encourage young women to take bet on themselves? Because I think a lot of people, we're in a time where people are taking chances, but I think women more than ever are being pushed forward and encouraged in some ways, but I think they still are dealing with a lot of hurdles as it relates to this topic. So what are some advice you would give to women as far as career advancement, and even men about how could they advance their careers, or how can those men empower women in their careers?
So one of the things that when I did my degree, I realized something. I have been cutting myself short. I had been selling myself too cheaply.
Yeah.
Okay. It had to do with the level of confidence. And then you have naysayers. Oh, well, you can't really ask for that. Or, if you ask for that, he's going to be really upset. And, nobody else is, asking for the same stuff. Well, generally, that's jealousy. Okay. I mean, most people in an organization don't want you to make more than they do. Right. So if you're talking about your salary and they make 5 times less than you, they're going to be upset. Okay. But you're new to an organization, you need to find out, you need to do your homework. So find out what the salary range is. Okay. And this is another thing that I found out. Men, I was listening to, oh my goodness. Oh, Sheryl Sandberg, listening to her audiobook. And I can't remember what it is. The name escapes me, but you know who Sheryl Sandberg is, right? I was listening to her and she said, when a woman looks at a job description, she determines whether or not she's qualified by the job, or qualified for the job by seeing if she's 80% qualified. So if she's less than 80% qualified, she will go after the job. A man looks at a job description, sees 60% qualification, and applies for the job. And will generally get the job.
Wow.
Being inexperienced. Wow. Why? Because men take the risk. Women look to be validated in the fact that they've accomplished all these things. Wow. Men look for room to grow. Right?
Wow. Wow.
So I would encourage women to take more risk. Go after a job that you're not really qualified for. You may be 60% qualified for. Wow. Sell yourself. Okay? And then another thing was I was trying to get the other person on the other side of the table to validate whether or not I was qualified. Right? So a couple months ago, somebody had asked me about doing an interview, and I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. I wasn't really sensing that I wanted to do it. But I felt like I just wanted to just go out and practice, maybe, because I had some other things in mind. I've got some business ideas that I'm working on. I am doing some things with Relationships Matter, and I've got some nonprofit stuff that's kind of in the mix of all of this stuff that I'm doing right now. But I was just like, well, let me just go check it out. I haven't interviewed in a while. Like I said, had a consulting firm. Let me go. So I get in there, and I don't really care about this job. Like, not that I don't care, but I don't care what this person thinks about me, right? I know what I'm worth. I know how much money I can bring you in your organization, right? And I'm not looking for this woman to validate me. So we're sitting on the table, and she was like, well, what do you want to make? I was like, this will make us okay. So, I mean, you can take it or leave it, but, this will make me okay. She said, well, we can't really do that right now, da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, that's your loss. But knowing your worth, knowing your value, most of us women, we still think we're unqualified. We just do. We think we're unqualified. And we're trying to get this other person to validate us. What they're looking for is confidence and your ability to negotiate. Because if they're saying the job is $37,000, they have wiggle room, right? They can take it up to about 45 or 50, right? So they're telling you it's 37 because they're trying to get off cheap.
Yep.
And they're going to drive a hard bargain. But you've got to know how to negotiate. Look at your skill set. This is what's going to add value to your company. And then do it. Just go for it. And that's men, women, universally. Look at your skill set. Go after it. Tell them what you're worth.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, my gosh. That's so good and so encouraging for people to hear that we actually should see ourselves as more valuable. Kind of dig into that a little bit more, because I think what you said, you said something that really struck me concerning that is, like, what does that look like? Because, I think sometimes people don't really know how to go about doing something. They want to, they want to bring that type of but when they get in those situations, what does that really look like? Like, give me an example of how someone can actually come into a situation very confidently and say, hey, I'm worth this. If you can't meet me there, sorry, you know.
So I will say, really be worth that. I mean, just
Yeah,
really be worth that. If you say that
yeah.
you're going to bring it, really bring it. Okay. Because that's going to boost your confidence 100%. Okay. Now, I won't say this, but hey, we're just out here.
Listen, say what you need to say.
So, worked for an organization, and the lady at this organization was making somewhere around $60,000 a year. Okay. She was being underpaid. She was doing a whole lot of work. She put a job application out there. This large company was looking for somebody with the same qualifications doing less work and was paying them more than $120,000 a year.
What? Oh my gosh.
She applied for the job. She got the job. She went to her current employer and said, hey, look, this is what they're offering me. Can you match it? The employer says no. The person leaves the company. There is a gaping hole in the company for several
Wow.
years. Know your worth. So I'll say, apply for multiple jobs, see what the offers are, and then make a decision based on that. Because sometimes people are lagging in the market, sometimes people are ahead of the market, sometimes they're right at the market. Know what that looks like. Do research. Find out what people are paying. Look at the area, look at that surrounding area, the size. Now, if I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I'm not going to look at New York City to price compare, because cost of living is way more expensive than living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So look at something that's comparable, a comparable area, same sized demographics, things of that nature, and then what the job is worth, and then go after it. Find out what lags, find out what's median, and then find out what's in the lead. And then just do it.
Wow. That's so good. I'm taking that advice to heart because I personally am kind of in that place. I almost share this every single time I talk to someone, but as someone who's getting their master's right now, and then even considering getting certifications, like, adding value to yourself is a powerful thing because it gives you the type of leverage to make a difference. You shared the story of that friend or that woman who had to make the decision. Do you feel like, just in your opinion, do you think that a lot of people are struggling to actually uh, ask the right kind of questions in interviews, or put the right kind of pressure on that company to give them their value? What are your thoughts about that?
I think there's a couple of things going on simultaneously. You have inexperienced people that are asking the bold questions, right? And so that makes no sense. But they're going in no experience and they're saying, hey, give me $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. Okay. But I think once you get into a job and you've been in it for a while, unless you have the confidence in your leadership to kind of really see you as that, because leadership has biases, right? So they can typecast you, and you know
Yes.
what typecasting is, right? You see the
Yes.
same type of role and you only think that they can do that.
Yes.
Unless you can move within your organization. So this organization was flat that she worked for. So she had been
Yeah.
working for this person for a long time. They typecasted her. She went to a more lateral organization, not lateral, sorry, vertical organization where she could move up, and they saw the quality, they saw the worth, they saw the value. So even in small organizations, you may not be able to have that same negotiating power because they may not necessarily have the funds to do that. But if you go to a larger organization, that's really willing to pay and they're aggressively competitive, yeah, they'll pay what you're worth.
Yeah, I think it's great advice. Um, how have you done that? I remember you saying earlier about, hey, if y'all don't pay me this, I'm sorry, I can't devalue myself. How do how did you get to this place? Because I don't think that you just got to this place all of a sudden. How did you get to this place where you, in every interview now, you're so confident? You go in there and you say, "This is how much I know that I'm worth. This is how much I can bring to the table, and this is what you should pay me." Like, how did you get to that place? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, Miss Andrea. Like, I'm not even there. There are people in the company that I work for that have less experience than me, have been there shorter times than me, but for some reason, they might have got a promotion way before I did, or they took a chance way before I did, or they got options to move up in some type of way way before I did. Uh, um, how did you get to that place where you literally are like, you can't pay me, you can't have me? How did you get there?
So if you're at the table, most of the battle is already over. And what happens is you get to the most people get to the table and then they try to prove that they're ready to be at the table, that they're qualified to be at the
Wow,
table,
wow,
right? But
wow.
if you're already in the room, all you have to do is sell yourself. I mean, basically you just close the deal. You start negotiating, right? So if you're at the table, negotiate. Now, I've had people that have been in my corner. So so I've been in HR for 11 years 11 years now. When I first started in HR, I'd been a stay-at-home mom for a long time.
And you guys are
My,
some of my favorite people.
yeah, I love it.
Y'all the people of companies.
We are some of us. Some of us are mean and
Yes.
don't really give a sorry, don't really give a care.
No, you can say crap, but I don't know.
They don't care. Okay, so some of us are. Well, anyway, so I started out in HR, and I'd been off the job for a long time, so that means that I'm behind with technology. I'm behind with just a lot of different things. I don't know what's going on. And when I did work, I was in a nonprofit sector, kind of in an administrative capacity. So getting into HR, I'm like, yeah, I can do anything, but I don't know anything about this field. Well, somehow few weeks later my boss is fired, so I'm like, oh gosh.
Wow.
Like, I don't even know, like, this person that normally what I know is if someone is fired then you're let go. Well,
Yeah.
I found there was a lady that worked for the vice president of one of the vice presidents of the company that was a head over my department. She took a liking to me and she said, give her an opportunity
Yeah.
to prove herself. Well, see, I didn't know any of this stuff was going on. I'm freaking out. I'm like, I'm going to lose my job. And the lady comes in, the vice president comes in and says, hey, I'm going to give you another opportunity to succeed at this job.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm completely grateful. I'm doing all that I know to do. I'm learning. I'm, just all of these different capacities. And as I worked for the organization, they saw my value. Everybody that's in leadership is a woman, right? They saw my worth. They gave me more opportunities and more opportunities and more opportunities and more opportunities and more opportunities. So it's a beautiful thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a beautiful thing to really see. So they paid it forward for me. Somebody saw my value and made sure, even when people were way more qualified than me, made sure I stuck around. So
Yeah.
I would say go in, get to know people, get to know the higher ups, tell them who you are. Hey, my name is this person and this is what I'm accomplishing. Because when you do that, they remember you, right? Normally we're taught to be humble, don't brag about yourself. Well, that's not bragging, that's a reality. This is who I am, right?
Yeah.
I'm not boasting about it. This is who I am.
Right.
I'm getting a master's degree in this area, and this is what I know that I can bring to the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head for me. I think this, if anybody gets motivated and encouraged from listening or watching this, it's definitely going to be me. But anybody I think who is realizing that they're having that limbo in their career, because, and let's talk about that for a second, because I think a lot of people, they're struggling with this idea of, hey, I'm in this company, I'm kind of, I might be selling myself, I might be, asking the questions or trying to connect, but I don't see the path forward. Like, what do you do in that regard when you don't see the path to move forward in your career at in any company, especially for young women who, I mean, when I tell you and you know this to be true, but statistically, women are way more educated than men. Like, this generation of women are some of the most educated people in the world. Particularly African American women are the most educated group in America at this point. Yet we're seeing such a disparity in wage when it comes down to payment. And when you look at the statistics of payment for every dollar a man makes, you probably have seen those statistics of the insanity of, women that are way more qualified, much smarter. How my question is, how do you overcome that and decide, hey, I don't see upward mobility in the company. I'm trying to sell myself. I'm trying to make connections. I'm trying to show that I'm of value. I'm creating initiatives and giving it to the HR people or all these different things. What are some advice can you give to people who are trying to move forward, but they're just having some difficulties within their organizations?
So, I am a lot different than a lot of HR people or people that are a little bit maybe in a different generation. So, I am a millennial. I'm at the beginning of the millennials. And I've done some research of my own. I am not of the persuasion that you need to stay with an organization for a long time. I'm just not. If you
Right.
find out that there's no upward mobility, you need to get out and get out fast because number one, you're not going to have the cutting edge advancement in your field like some other organizations would. If you find out that it's flat, you're probably behind. If you've learned everything that you can and there's no room for advancement, you need to move on, right?
Yeah.
I hear other generations, boomers, Xers, talking about, hey, there's no loyalty among the millennials. They, do act, they're not committed, all of these other things. Well, you got to think when we came out of college and we were in the job market, the recession hit, right? Now, some
Yeah.
of y'all might be in high school, but I felt it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So the recession hit. And at that point, we were competing with people that had been in organizations for 20, 30 years that had been let go, given a retirement package, and they couldn't afford to be off. So they were competing for my entry level position.
Wow.
You understand?
Wow. Yeah.
So we're out here, we're trying to get out there, we're trying to get into the market and we just can't. You got to take I mean, you've got college debt. You
Yeah.
got to take any job that you can at this point. Come up with new ideas, like innovations. Technology wasn't as advanced as it is today. So it's a very, I mean, we were working with apps and things of that nature, but it was a very it was a very cutthroat time for us. And then you say, well, keep being loyal, these millennials. Well, we get into the jobs, okay? Finally, the recession lets up, and then they don't want to tell us or show us anything because we're a threat.
Wow.
A lot of us were out there looking for mentors that didn't want to provide information. So we had to find it on our own or create it ourselves or
Yes.
make it different or disrupt it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily. Yes, I want you to stay with a good organization. If they have upper mobility opportunities, I want you to be a part as long as you can, as long as your skills are sharp. But I'm not going to tell you to be loyal to that organization for a long time, because if something were to happen, they'll cut you loose. So
Yep.
I don't necessarily hold that same loyalty to organizations, because there is really no loyalty within the organization. It has really been motivated. Now, there are some companies that are committed to their employees, but there really is no loyalty provided by a company. It really is, hey, if we've got a cut, I'm sorry, you got to go.
Yep. 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 I want to add a data point to what you said, because what you said was the flat foot truth. Like it is. There's something I actually looked up not too long ago, particularly about millennials, and it said that most millennials were between age 5 and 20 when 9/11 happened, and then many were old enough to comprehend the historical significance of that moment, while most Gen Zs were little or have no memory of the event at all. Like these babies don't even remember it. It said
Mm-hmm.
millennials also grew up in the shadow of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, with sharply broadened views of parties and contributions to the intense political polarization that shapes the current political environment. Most millennials were between 12 and 27 during the 2008 election, and we actually impacted the votes in different ways. As you said, we were we were very cognizant of what's going on during the financial crisis of 2007, 2008. And then here's
Mm-hmm.
the other reality is that most millennials are in their 20s or 30s right now during the pandemic. Like
Yes.
we are the largest share of the people that are in the market working at this point. And they even said this, where the force of the young vote was part of a political conversation to help elect the first black president, and added to the fact that millennials are the most racially and ethnically diverse generation in the nation's history. So you're dealing with a
Yes.
group of people who fundamentally have such diversity and uniqueness and difference in how we engage with information, how we
Mm-hmm.
engage with one another, the way we talk to each
Yes.
other. Most of us have worked or been in environments where even people we talk to did not have the same background as us, don't have the same faith as us, they don't have the same community, they don't have the same family structures that we have. And so it has caused us to be more open to diversity and more open to engaging with people in a different way. I think, and I think you brought up some very pivotal. I, how has that pushback in a lot of ways? How do you think that that plays into how we approach entrepreneurship? Because I know a lot of millennials who either own businesses or have started projects simply because they felt like they couldn't advance in a standard or a traditional business structure. How are you seeing that happen?
Well, I myself, I mean, I felt like they weren't listening. I mean, it was extremely dismissive. Um, in the workplace, they weren't listening. So I wanted to use my own platform to change the narrative. So yeah, I mean, it's increased it. I mean, there
Wow.
are people that are out there humping, doing their own thing, because these companies were not listening to those voices.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's quite evident in the CEOs that we see. I mean, you know, whether people like them or not, like Jack Dorsey is in his late 30s. Uh, Zuckerberg is in his 30s. These some of these major, like a lot of the social media CEOs, these guys are 30 some years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
These are not 50-year olds, 60-year olds. And they might have learned some things from tech legends like Jobs and Gates and Wozniak and, the guy who founded Google. But these young guys kind of came into this space bringing a different perspective that we haven't seen in the space. And um, and kind of turning back to this, but what are some of the things that you expect to happen with more female CEOs and more women taking on leadership roles within companies? Because even in those companies, we're seeing there's a lot of women who are rising to lead companies. The CEO of YouTube is a woman now. I think the last time I checked, is a woman. But the CEO or now there's the she's I don't know if she's a CEO or she's over a specific division. It is a black woman who just took over the news division at CNN, if I'm not mistaken. There's also a black woman who have been, in her career for many, many years in the business sector, who just became the CEO of Walgreens. How are you seeing female CEOs come into this space and female leadership happen? How would you think that is affecting the future of these companies in a lot of ways?
So women are very different as far as approach when it comes to making decisions. We want everybody in the room that can give inspiration, ideas. We don't necessarily have to have it our way unless we're narcissistic. But women that are in leadership roles, they're changing the dynamic because they're pulling in people that have greater expertise, that know more about the situation than we do. See, it's not about being able to say, "Well, I just make these wonderful decisions and I'm awesome, I'm amazing." It's knowing who has the information that you need at the time, and whether they're brown, yellow, green, blue, no matter what. I don't know if I can say this. No matter what their preference is, if they have the information, you can sit at the table
Yes.
and talk about it because we need to move forward. And I think that's what women leadership brings to the table more so than males in that regard. I'm not saying males aren't great leaders, but I'm saying they bring a difference so the company starts to look
Yeah.
differently. More people of different backgrounds start to enter the organization,
Yeah.
right? And then you have those bureaucratic dynamics that were there before are shifting, and you have more sponsorship from higher ups to more colorful, more diverse people as opposed to one type.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think this is great. I got two comments as it relates to what you just said. Um, and then I'm going to move on to my final few questions. But two things came to my mind. Number one, as you know, I work for a credit union, and the women that lead in my organization, I've been at this particular branch for like the last year or so, and these women that I work with are so intentional, so strategic. They make themselves available to have conversations about just our lives. Like, one thing that I have valued and have really been impacted by is these women have made themselves available to just not talk about work.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is a lot of people don't realize your work is affected by your life.
Yes.
How you're living your life outside of work is a significant aspect of how you function in the workplace. And so them giving us permission to be authentic and honest and them taking care of us, but them also challenging us to do our work and do it well and not be trash in what we do has been so helpful for me. And I've learned so much in my leadership from these women. Like, it has made me a better leader by being led by women, by being led
Mm-hmm.
by people who are intentional, who are compassionate, who care about the quality of work, who care about the details, who care about, hey, you really need to, you know, I know you're capable of doing better, right? I need you to really understand that you have the quality to actually do great work. And it's impacted me in such significant ways. And even my girlfriend Bree, who is Andrea, really knows very well. Bree works for this tax agency here in Tulsa, where this woman, her and her husband started these companies. He's a doctor, but she's a business owner. She has the largest African American owned tax agency in the state of Oklahoma. This black woman,
Wow.
and she hires
Yes.
women and she empowers women. And Bree tells me all the time how they have team building events and they have all these things going on throughout the week because she wants to cultivate a culture of acceptance and cultivate a culture of success and cultivate a culture of unity. And I think those type of things actually make organizations better. When I feel like we can have true, authentic conversations, I tend to be more engaged in the work. And I've seen just in my own life and even watch my girlfriend, like that's the type of stuff that really makes a big difference in organizations. And it really can help with the morale that organizations are trying to keep within that. You said everything that was amazing. So I'm gonna get to my last three questions and then we can wrap it up. Um, how are you paying it forward in your career?
So one of the ways that I'm doing it is being a professor. So I plan on doing that throughout the duration, I guess forever. And like I said, I have some nonprofit things that I'm working on, because I really think it's important for young people, women, for me to be able to look back and hand you information that you didn't necessarily have before, right? To be able to put out things that, or be a mentor to different people. So I'm available for questioning. I have a Facebook page. I'm going to get another Facebook page that starts up about relationships at work. So there's just a lot of things that I want to do. I'm kind of in the process of doing, but one of the major things that I'm doing right now is instructing.
And that's good. Um, it's helpful to teach and helpful to invest the information that you know to make other lives better, right? Um, so I think that's great. So, I asked you this before we got started, but who are you reading? I know you have Relationship Matters, but you got some business stuff going on. So what are you reading these days?
So right now, I'm kind of I want to look at investing. So I'm in the process of
Good.
reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I'm excited about what that looks like. It really goes over investment, ownership, liquidity, things of that nature. So I feel like if I put myself in a better position financially, then I can give back whatever I want to, right? I can invest in whatever I want to.
That's that last statement is true. I think a lot of people want to make a difference in the world, but they don't realize that if you get your credit right, if you save, if you do those different things, it gives you the ability to be more impactful. And that's not for this episode, and we're not going to have that conversation because that's a
Okay.
conversation that eventually on this season we're going to end up having, particularly talking about money. But you're right. And so my last question for you, I so appreciate you. But my last question for you is, it's kind of a fun question. I ask this literally every single episode. So what song would you use to describe yourself and why? I'm very interested to hear this.
So I like, he's a Christian artist. His name's Travis Green. And his song is Taste and See. Taste and See. So I feel like throughout my life, I told you I started out with very humble beginnings. And I've seen God touch my life at every single phase and
Yeah.
every level. So I've tasted and I've seen over and over and over again.
Well, Miss Andrea, thank you for giving me of your time. I hope that people are inspired and impacted by things that you have to say, and I hope women, more specifically, and men, are challenged to pursue the things that they want to do in the world and believe that they can make a difference. So thank you. I so appreciate you.
Thank you, Lee. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. If you have not done it yet, subscribe today on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. To get more information about me and what I'm doing, email me at scottconsultations@gmail.com or follow me on social media on Twitter and especially Instagram at Lee A. Scott II or Lee A. Scott II. Thank you for watching this week's episode. I really appreciate it. Much love, and let's get started.